Shadows of Yesterday. Oliver Blackwood stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Seattle estate, watching raindrops trace patterns down the glass. The city skyline glittered beneath storm clouds, a testament to the empire he'd built from nothing. Blackwood Technologies had revolutionized renewable energy storage, making him a fortune that afforded him this mountaintop sanctuary and the solitude he craved. His phone buzzed, Victoria calling again. His executive assistant had been pestering him about the new groundskeeper starting today. Oliver sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. At 42, silver threads had begun appearing at his temples, matching the steel in his gray eyes that financial journalists often described as calculatingly brilliant. The interview process was thorough, Victoria had assured him. She has excellent references and experience with large estates. Plus, she's willing to live on site, which solves our retention problem. Oliver had merely nodded, distracted by quarterly projections. The staff were Victoria's domain. He preferred algorithms to people. They were predictable, fixable when broken. The doorbell echoed through the house. Oliver frowned. New staff used the service entrance. He considered ignoring it, but something pulled him toward the door. Intuition, perhaps, or maybe just the disruption to his carefully ordered world. When he opened it, time collapsed. Eleanor? She stood in the rain, copper hair darkened to auburn, freckles still dancing across her nose despite the passage of 12 years. Her green eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed with something between shock and fury. Oliver. His name fell from her lips like a stone. I'm here about the groundskeeper position. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Eleanor Walsh, the woman he'd walked away from when ambition called louder than love, was standing on his doorstep seeking employment. "You're E. Walsh on the application," he said, voice carefully controlled. "Yes." She straightened, professional mask sliding into place. "I wasn't aware this was your residence. Victoria Sutton conducted my interview." Of course, Victoria wouldn't recognize the name. Oliver had buried that chapter of his life so deeply, even his closest associates knew nothing of Eleanor. "Please, come in out of the rain," he managed. Eleanor hesitated before stepping inside, maintaining careful distance. She'd changed. The carefree art student replaced by a woman with weathered hands and dignified composure. Her simple clothes were practical but couldn't hide her natural grace. "I can find another position," she said quietly. "No." The word came quickly. "The job is yours if you want it." "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. Victoria chose you from dozens of applicants." He paused. "Why this job, Eleanor? You were studying landscape architecture when you left," she finished. "Life happens. My father got sick, cancer. I had to drop out." Guilt twisted inside him. "I'm sorry." "Are you?" Her question carried 12 years of hurt. Before he could answer, Victoria appeared in the hallway. "Ms. Walsh, you're early. I see you've met Mr. Blackwood." "We're acquainted," Oliver said, not missing Eleanor's flinch. Victoria looked between them, sensing undercurrents. "Well, let me show you to your cottage and review your duties." Eleanor nodded, not meeting his eyes. "Thank you, Miss Sutton." As Victoria led her away, Oliver returned to his window, watching rain blur the world. Outside, Eleanor Walsh. Here. The universe had given him what he never thought possible, a second chance. But the woman who walked across his grounds wasn't the one he'd left behind. This Eleanor had built defenses he'd never encountered in the passionate, open-hearted girl he'd once loved. This Eleanor looked at him with eyes that had learned to expect disappointment. And why shouldn't she? He'd chosen empire over love, convinced himself that success required sacrifice. Now, 12 years later, he stood alone in a glass castle. with everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. The rain intensified, mirroring the storm awakening inside him. Eleanor Walsh had returned to his life like a ghost from another time. Only she was flesh and blood, no longer a memory he could control or ignore. Oliver pressed his forehead against the cool glass. She needed this job. He needed what? Redemption? Forgiveness? Or simply the chance to see her again, even if she looked at him with justified contempt. Outside, Eleanor entered the groundskeeper's cottage at the edge of his property. Close enough to reach, far enough to maintain the distance between them, a distance he had created with his own hands years ago. Pride and second chances. The first week passed in careful avoidance. Oliver watched from his office window as Eleanor transformed the neglected eastern gardens, her movements precise and purposeful. She worked with quiet determination, starting each day before dawn and finishing only when dusk made it impossible to continue. Victoria noticed his distraction. "The new groundskeeper is quite remarkable," she commented, placing budget reports on his desk. "The previous 3 didn't last a month, but Ms. Walsh seems different." "Different," Oliver echoed. The word inadequate for the woman he'd once known inside and out. "How is she settling in?" "Well enough, though rather private. She requested Thursdays off for her father's treatments." Victoria hesitated. "She mentioned applying for a loan to cover medical expenses. I thought you should know." Oliver's jaw tightened. Grayson Walsh had always been kind to him, a literature professor who welcomed the ambitious boyfriend of his daughter with thoughtful conversations and genuine interest. The man had seen potential in Oliver beyond his rough background and determination to succeed. "Thank you, Victoria. That's all for today." After she left, Oliver made a call to Seattle Memorial's oncology department. Money solved most problems. This one was simple: an anonymous donation to cover Grayson Walsh's treatment, with instructions that the family never be told the source. Thursday morning, Oliver found himself driving toward the hospital, a decision made on impulse rather than the careful calculation that governed his life. He spotted them immediately, Eleanor helping her father from a weathered Toyota toward the entrance. Grayson Walsh had aged dramatically. Once robust and energetic, he now moved with fragile caution, leaning heavily on his daughter. Eleanor's face showed quiet strain, but her voice carried the same gentle strength as she guided him inside. Oliver waited 30 minutes before following, wearing a baseball cap and casual clothes, a disguise of normalcy for a man rarely seen. Outside bespoke suits. He found them in the oncology waiting room. Grayson dozed in his chair while Eleanor read a dog-eared paperback. Oliver recognized it instantly. Neruda's love poems, the same collection he'd given her for their first anniversary. The sight struck him with unexpected force. He was about to retreat when Grayson stirred and looked directly at him. Recognition flashed in the older man's eyes. "Oliver Blackwood," he said, voice weaker but still carrying the professor's distinct cadence. "I suspected we might see you once Eleanor took that position." Eleanor's head snapped up, book forgotten as her father continued. "Don't look so surprised, my dear. The universe has patterns that repeat themselves." "Dad," Eleanor warned, but Grayson waved her concern away. "Cancer grants certain privileges. Speaking uncomfortable truths is one of them." He gestured to the chair beside him. "Join us, Oliver, unless empire building calls." The gentle barb found its mark. Oliver sat, removed his cap. "Professor Walsh, I'm sorry about your health." "Life happens," Grayson replied, echoing his daughter's earlier words. "We adapt." Eleanor stared at her, book, knuckles white against the cover. "I need coffee," she announced suddenly, standing. "Dad, your usual?" "Please." Grayson watched her walk away before turning to Oliver. "She was broken when you left." "I know." "No, you don't," Grayson's eyes, so like his daughter's, held no malice, only weary honesty. You know what you imagined. Reality was far worse. Oliver swallowed hard. I thought I was doing the right thing. My company was taking off. Investors were demanding more. I couldn't give her the attention she deserved. So you gave her nothing instead. The words hung between them, undeniable in their truth. The curious thing, Grayson continued, is that Eleanor would have understood. She never expected your undivided attention, only your honesty, your partnership. A nurse called Grayson's name before Oliver could respond. The older man stood carefully. Strange, Grayson mused. The hospital called yesterday. Apparently, my treatment has been covered by an endowment for professors. Curious timing, wouldn't you say? He left Oliver sitting alone, the implication clear. Minutes later, Eleanor returned with 2 coffee cups, faltering when she saw her, father gone. They called him in, Oliver explained. Eleanor nodded, setting 1 cup down. After a moment's hesitation, she offered the other to him. Black, 2 sugars. You still take it that way? The fact that she remembered such a small detail pierced him. Yes, thank you. They sat in silence until Eleanor spoke. Whatever you did for my father's treatment. Eleanor, let me finish, she insisted quietly. Thank you. But it doesn't change anything between us. I didn't expect it to. Then why? Oliver considered his words carefully. Because he deserves it. Because you shouldn't have to carry this burden alone. I've carried many burdens alone. Since you left, she replied, not meeting his eyes. I learned how. The simple statement revealed more than a dozen accusations could have. Oliver had left her to build his empire, never looking back to see what destruction his departure had caused. I made a mistake, he admitted, the words foreign on his tongue. Oliver Blackwood didn't acknowledge mistakes. He corrected course and moved forward. Yet here he was, confronting the greatest error of his life. Eleanor finally looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since she'd arrived at his estate. Which part was the mistake, Oliver? Loving me or leaving? Me? Before he could answer, her phone buzzed. She checked it, expression shifting to concern. It's Victoria. There's some issue with the sprinkler system flooding the West Garden. I need to go. She stood, leaving the question hanging between them. Oliver watched her gather her things, the practical efficiency of her movements masking the artistic soul he once knew. Eleanor, he called as she reached the door. She paused without turning. I'll stay with your father until he's finished. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. The barest acknowledgement of his offer. Then she was gone, leaving behind the scent of earth and lavender that he now realized had always been her signature, not some expensive perfume. Grayson returned an hour later, exhausted but sharp-eyed. She's not the same girl you left behind, he said as Oliver helped him to a chair. I'm not the same man who left, Oliver replied. Grayson studied him. Perhaps not, but the question remains, is this new man brave enough to fight for what the old man abandoned? Oliver had no answer, but as he drove the professor home, he felt something shifting inside him. Foundations he'd thought immovable beginning to tremble beneath the weight of regret and possibility. Whispers and revelations. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning. Oliver's phone rang at 4:30 a.m. Victoria's tone clipped and urgent. Turn on the financial news. He reached for the remote, and James Harrington's face filled the screen. Oliver's longest-standing business rival smiled with practiced concern as the ticker beneath him read, Blackwood Technologies accused of patent infringement. Sources claim Blackwood's revolutionary battery storage system bears striking similarities to designs developed by a small research team that mysteriously lost funding 3 years ago, Harrington said. feigning journalistic impartiality despite his own energy company's obvious interest in Blackwood's downfall. Oliver listened, stone-faced, as Harrington continued to spin his carefully crafted narrative. The allegations were baseless. Oliver had documentation proving independent development, but markets reacted to headlines, not truth. By opening bell, his stock would plummet. "Emergency board meeting at 7, Victoria informed him. "Legal, team is assembling now. I'll be there in 30 minutes. As he dressed, Oliver glanced out his window. Despite the early hour, Eleanor was already in the garden, kneeling beside new plantings, unaware that her employer's empire was under attack. The sight of her, steady, grounded, centered him momentarily amid the chaos. Oliver spent the day in crisis management. By evening, when he finally returned home, the damage control was underway but far from complete. Blackwood Technologies had lost 18% of its value in a single day. He found Eleanor in the greenhouse, cataloging seedlings. When she looked up, her expression shifted from surprise to concern. "You look terrible," she said frankly. Oliver managed a grim smile. "Not my finest day. I saw the news." She returned to her seedlings, methodically noting their progress. Harrington always was a snake. The casual reference to their shared past startled him. For weeks, Eleanor had maintained careful distance, their interactions limited to brief professional exchanges. This was the first acknowledgement that she remembered anything about his life before. "You remember James Harrington?" "Of course," she replied, not looking up. "He hit on me at that fundraiser for clean energy research. You nearly punched him." "I should have," Oliver murmured, the memory surfacing with unexpected clarity. Eleanor in a green dress that matched her eyes, Harrington's hand lingering too long on her back, the possessive fury Oliver had barely contained. Eleanor's hands stilled over her plants. "Is it true? About the patents?" "No." The word came firmly. "But truth is rarely as interesting as scandal." She nodded, seemingly satisfied with his answer. After a moment, she reached for a small pot. "These are black hellebores. They bloom in winter when everything else dies back. Resilient." She offered the plant to him. "For your office." The gesture, small yet significant, left him momentarily speechless. He accepted the pot, their fingers brushing briefly. "Thank you." A knock interrupted them. Sophia Reed stood at the greenhouse entrance, her expression apologetic. "Sorry to intrude. Eleanor, your father called my cell when you didn't answer yours." Eleanor checked her phone, grimacing at several missed calls. "Battery died. Is everything okay?" "Okay?" "He's fine. Just worried about you working late," Sophia assured her, then nodded politely to Oliver. "Mr. Blackwood." "Ms. Reed. You're Eleanor's friend from university?" "We've stayed close," Sophia confirmed, her protective stance subtle but unmistakable. "I should get back to Thomas and the kids. But Elle? We're still on for dinner Friday?" After Sophia left, an awkward silence fell between them until Oliver asked, "How long have you known I was being targeted by Harrington?" Eleanor looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "This attack wasn't spontaneous. Harrington's been planning it for months, gathering intel, waiting for the perfect moment." "And you think I had something to do with it?" Disbelief colored her voice. "That what? I took this job to spy for him?" "You have to admit the timing is suspicious," Oliver said, immediately regretting his words as hurt flashed across her face. 12 years later, and you still don't trust me." She shook her head, disappointment evident. "Some things never change." She moved to leave, but Oliver caught her arm gently. "Eleanor, wait. I'm sorry. That was unfair." "Yes, it was." She pulled away. For the record, Harrington approached me 6 months ago, offering a ridiculous amount of money for information about you once he discovered our history. I told him to go to hell. The revelation stunned Oliver. You never mentioned this. Why would I? We're not friends, Oliver. We're not anything. Her voice softened. But I wouldn't betray you. Not even after everything. Before he could respond, Victoria burst into the greenhouse, tablet in hand. Oliver, we have a problem. Someone's leaked internal documents to Harrington. Research, notes, early prototypes. They're scheduling a press conference for tomorrow morning. Eleanor tensed beside him. Victoria glanced between them, noticing their proximity. Should I come back later? No, Eleanor said quickly. I was just leaving. After she departed, Victoria eyed the plant in Oliver's hands curiously, but focused on business. The board wants action. They're suggesting a scapegoat. Meaning? Some of them think firing your new groundskeeper would send a message, show we're investigating all recent hires for potential corporate espionage. Oliver's expression hardened. Absolutely not. Oliver, be reasonable. The timing of her employment is coincidental, he cut in. Eleanor Walsh has nothing to do with this. Victoria studied him. You never call employees by their first names. Victoria, find the actual leak. Leave Ms. Walsh out of this. Later that night, unable to sleep, Oliver reviewed security footage from the past month. 3 hours in, he found it. Benjamin Morris, his mentor and senior board member, accessing servers containing proprietary information, downloading files onto an external drive. The betrayal cut deep. Ben had been there from the beginning, guiding Oliver through his rise from scrappy startup, founder to industry titan. He'd been like a father figure when Oliver's own father had shown nothing but disdain for his ambitions. Dawn found Oliver still at his desk when Eleanor appeared at his door, concern evident. You haven't slept. How did you know I'd be here? Your light was on all night, she said simply. I could see it from my cottage. The realization that she'd noticed, that perhaps she'd been watching his window as he sometimes watched her in the garden, stirred something long dormant inside. Him. I found the leak, he said. Benjamin Morris. Eleanor's eyes widened. Your mentor? Why would he betray you? Money, power, fear of obsolescence? Oliver shrugged, exhaustion making him candid. Pick one. They all taste the same. Eleanor approached. His desk, her presence bringing the scent of morning soil and possibility. What will you do? What I have to. He looked up at her, allowing himself one moment of vulnerability. I've lost people I trusted before. It never gets easier. Her eyes softened with something like understanding. No, it doesn't. She hesitated, then placed a small object on his desk, a smooth river stone with a perfect spiral fossil embedded within. I found this while planting yesterday. Ancient things, preserved through time and pressure. Some things endure, Oliver. She left him holding the stone, its cool surface warming in his palm as the sun rose over Seattle, casting long shadows across the empire he'd built, and the fragments of what he'd sacrificed to build it. The price of redemption. The boardroom. Hummed with tension as 14 executives watched Oliver enter. Benjamin Morris sat near the head of the table, his silver hair impeccably styled, his expression a carefully constructed mask of concern. Diana Winters, chief financial officer, and one of the few women on the board, checked her watch pointedly. 9 minutes late, Oliver. Rather unlike you. Forgive me, Oliver replied coolly, setting a flash drive on the polished table. I was compiling evidence of corporate espionage. The room fell silent. Oliver met Benjamin's gaze directly. Isn't that right, Ben? To his credit, Benjamin didn't flinch. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. Oliver activated the wall screen, displaying security footage of Benjamin accessing restricted servers. 3 separate occasions, each preceding a leak to Harrington Industries. He played a recording next, Benjamin's voice negotiating compensation with Harrington himself. The blood drained from Benjamin's face as board members shifted uncomfortably. "Why?" Oliver asked simply. Benjamin straightened, mask slipping to reveal calculation beneath. "You've lost your edge, Oliver. The company needed direction." "My direction wasn't profitable enough?" The deliberate mischaracterization of Eleanor's position didn't escape Oliver's notice. Diana Winters leaned forward. "Is this true, Oliver? Has your personal life compromised your judgment?" "My judgment is sound," Oliver replied evenly. "Sound enough to catch a traitor in our midst." "Perhaps," Diana conceded. "But Benjamin raises a valid concern. Your preoccupation with this employee has coincided with several questionable decisions." Oliver's jaw tightened. "Such as?" "Pulling back on the Jakarta acquisition, rejecting the military contract that would have tripled our government portfolio. Those were ethical decisions, not emotional ones." Diana shrugged elegantly. "The distinction matters little to shareholders." Benjamin, sensing an opportunity, pressed his advantage. "The board has discussed the situation. We feel it would be best if you took a temporary leave of absence while we manage this crisis. And of course the woman should be terminated immediately." "The woman," Oliver repeated, voice dangerously soft, "has a name. Eleanor Walsh. And she has nothing to do with this situation." "On the contrary," Benjamin replied, "she has everything to do with it. You've changed since she arrived. Become weak." Oliver studied the man who had once guided him, seeing clearly now the ruthlessness he'd once admired and eventually emulated. Was this what Eleanor had seen in him 12 years ago? This callous disregard for anything beyond profit and power? "You're right, Ben," Oliver said finally. "I have changed." Relief flickered across several faces, including Diana's. "Then you'll agree to our terms?" she asked. "No." Oliver straightened. "Benjamin Morris is fired, effective immediately. Security will escort him from the building within the hour." Benjamin laughed incredulously. "You can't fire me. I helped build this company." "And then you tried to destroy it." Oliver turned to the remaining board members. "As for the rest of you, I have something to say." He moved to the window overlooking Seattle's skyline. The view he'd once believed validated every sacrifice. "I built Blackwood Technologies to create sustainable energy solutions. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that mission. I prioritized growth over purpose, wealth over impact." He turned back to face them. "That ends today." Diana's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A restructuring. Effective immediately, we're redirecting 30% of our R&D budget to renewable solutions for underserved communities. We're withdrawing from markets where our technologies are being weaponized. And we're implementing the profit-sharing program I proposed last quarter, the one this board unanimously rejected." Protests erupted around the table. Benjamin scoffed loudly. "This is business suicide." "No," Oliver countered. "It's course correction." Diana stood, her expression calculating. "And if the board disagrees with this new direction?" Oliver met her gaze steadily. "Then I'll take my controlling interest and start over." "This is about her, isn't it?" Benjamin's voice cut through the chaos. "You'd risk everything we've built for some gardener who probably doesn't even want you anymore." The room fell silent as Oliver considered his response. "This isn't just about Eleanor," he said finally, "but she reminded me of something important. Some things should endure. Integrity, purpose, compassion." He paused. "So yes, in a way, this is about her. And I would risk everything for the chance to become someone worthy of her respect again." Benjamin's face contorted with disgust. "You've gone soft." "No, Ben. I've remembered what it means to be human." Oliver addressed the entire board. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Either support this new direction or buy out my shares at market value, which, as you know, would bankrupt most of you. As executives filed out in stunned silence, Victoria entered with a tablet. Your next meeting is with legal in 15 minutes. And, she hesitated, Miss Walsh is waiting in your office. Oh,